Hello, my name is Janet Bell, and my internship was for United Families International. United Families International is a nonprofit NGO that's a family advocacy group. They run two websites, and they have a presence on Facebook and Instagram, and they also have a mission to go to the UN during the Commission on the Status of Women in order to lobby the UN to use more family-friendly language. How I found my internship. Well, as I took the class Family 460, which is about advocacy, they use a lot of posts, lesson activities, and staff members from United Families International to teach that class. They also have a book called A Sacred Duty that they have you read. It's by Richard Wilkins, and it talks about his experiences in trying to lobby the UN, and he mentions them very highly in that book as being very helpful to him. So when I was deciding where I would do my internship, I went to the unitedfamilies.org, which is their website, and I clicked on the Get Involved button, which is actually up here at the top, which brought me to this page, and then I just clicked on internship, and that led me to know how to proceed. You will probably talk to Tori Black, who is the president. What you do is you'll send an email application to her and a letter, I think is what I did. And then she'll arrange an interview with you over Zoom. And then if you're lucky like me, she'll choose you as one of her interns. Before we go on, I want to mention that this is an unpaid internship. Everybody who works for United Families, they are all working as a volunteer. So what did I do for United Families? Well, every person who's an intern at United Families is asked to post on the World Family News website once a week. And what you do is you look for articles that have to do with their mission, and they talk about their advocacy is about marriage and family, it's about parental rights, it's about pornography, it's about freedom of religion, the sanctity of life, and sexual orientation and transgender issues. So you look at a bunch of different kinds of news sites. There were a lot of conservative news sites that they would recommend, like the Daily Signal or the Heritage Foundation or the Federalist Report, or my favorite was the Public Discourse. I really like the Public Discourse. But they also had you look up other newspapers like the New York Times and CNN, and I found some articles even on the Huff Post, or I found them on the Washington Post, which those are kind of more liberal websites, but we were just looking for articles that were good for families. And one of the things you learn when you do that is you learn how to upload to WordPress and how to upload pictures, and how you have to have them set to a certain time. So it's kind of really technical what you do there, but once you get used to it, it's not that hard. This is one of the articles that I found for them. I found it on the Daily Signal, and it was about high school girls who all of a sudden looked up one day and there were biological men in their locker room who were identifying as transgender, but they were, kind of scantily dressed, and it was embarrassing to them, and they didn't like it. And so this article is talking about how they felt about having transgendered males, especially who had that were biologically and anatomically male in their locker room. Another thing that United Family International likes the interns to do is to create what they call memes and upload them to social media. Well, being kind of a creative person, this is something that I really liked, and um, these are some of the memes that I created that got a lot of shares and attention. So this one had 22 shares with 155 engagements. This one had 245 engagements with 27 shares. And this one had over 1,000 people reached. This had almost 3,000 people reached. This one had over 2,000 reached with 271 engagements and 21 shares. This one I didn't think was going to reach as many people as it did, but it was the first one that I did that was kind of really popular. one of the things they had me do was work with April Gallert on the Commission of the Status of Women at the UN. What she does is she's the coordinator and director of mission relations for United Family International. And she has kind of a relationship with a lot of the countries that are represented at the UN, and they call them missions. So what she had me do at first is she likes to have contact with the people that she's already met and has a little bit of a relationship with. So she asked me to scan the international news sites. You do Google alerts for a country and you'll get all the news articles that are published on the web about them, and you can know what's going on in any country you want to kind of keep track of. So I think I had over 70 countries that I was kind of keeping track of for her. And I would just look through their news and see if there was anything that touched on any parts of our missions, family issues, or like comprehensive sex education is a big thing that the UN pushes and things like that. And I would send those to her in a daily report. Another thing I helped her do was to reformat her spreadsheet that she uses to keep track of all the people that she contacts. You'll see, it was kind of really hard to read, and I helped her with that. And finally, I did a lot of calling to UN missions trying to get contact information for her on the delegates who would be attending CSW so that she could contact them and maybe set up a meeting so that they can present information and help some of these countries lobby the UN to use family-friendly language in their documentation. So how did I benefit United Family International? Well, one thing that I kind of was interested in is every week I would see a report like this that would talk about how our Facebook page was doing. And as you can see, it was doing pretty well. It was going up while I worked there. Their engagements were going up and their page likes were going up and their reach was going up. And the engagements really interested me because to me that was a place that I could kind of see my own help, because there's 245 engagements for this post that I created, that I uploaded, that I helped them do. This is what the spreadsheet looked like that April had. And you can see it's just a bunch of lines. In fact, it's 495 lines on one single page. Very hard to tell the difference between countries or where one starts and one ends off. So I enlisted the help of my son and we reformatted it so that you could tell where the countries were. And we also changed it in that we instead of being one page, we did regions. So you've got Africa North, Africa South, Asia, so on, and that made it easier to tell where you were looking at and who she had spoken to from what country. Um, Another thing that I did that I'm not showing here is on each of these pages I put a region map so that she could see where these countries were in the continents they were on, or in the there's so many little island nations out in the middle of the ocean that they had relationships with. Here you can see that I made a lot of phone calls for them, and sometimes it was really frustrating. You can see this one right here. I called a lot. I got the machine a lot. I got sent, yeah, every time you'd send it, you'd go to this one and it would be an answering machine and you'd wait to leave a message and it would say the machine was full. And so that one was unfruitful. But there were some that, like, I'd try a lot. This one was my fourth time calling, and I finally got an answer and got the information that she needed so that she could contact somebody there about setting up a meeting. So how did I benefit from working for United Family Internationals? I feel like I really grew in a lot of ways, and I was pushed out of my comfort zone sometimes, and that was good for me. One of those ways was I don't really love to make phone calls, especially to people I don't know. And so calling these UN nations was definitely out of my comfort zone. But I learned to do it and to be persistent even when I didn't want to be persistent. And I got better at it as I went along, and I was able to get at least 50 different contacts for her that she needed. Another thing that I really feel like I learned a lot about was international news and even national news, because in working with the World Family News website, I was looking at newspapers every day, and I feel like I'm much better informed and have a better idea of what's going on in the world. I think helping her with the spreadsheet to make it look better, it that took some of my creativity and helped me develop kind of an eye for what's easy to read and what's kind of more simple to look at, and I think that was a really good thing for me to learn. I also had never done Instagram before, so now I know how to do Instagram. And one of the more interesting things that I learned was how to deal with internet trolls. On the Facebook page, I had my own special little troll who seemed to just be waiting for me to post something before she made some snarky little comment. She even called us a hate group at one point, which was funny. And I watched the leadership of UFI and the way they dealt with her, and usually they would give her facts and figures, to support their position based on social science. And other times they would just kind of be a little funny with her, and it taught me that you can have an internet troll who's out there trying to make you look bad, and if you deal with her with a little bit of humor and dignity, and if you know your stuff and you have good facts, it makes everything better. One of the big connections to my schoolwork was the social science that we were trying to promote on the site. This particular article is one that I found on the Public Discourse, which is probably my favorite site to read now. Um, they're talking about a peer-reviewed journal that had a very deeply flawed study on how social stigma affects the life expectancy of sexual minorities. You'll often hear people talking about how people in the LGBT community or the transgendered youth, it's a life-threatening thing. They need to have comprehensive sex education because lives are being threatened. This will save lives. And this is basically the study they're using for that. You'll listen to the mass media and you'll listen to courts. This stuff has been used in courts. But what nobody knows is that study has been retracted because the study was deeply biased and very flawed. And once this sociologist, Mark Regnerus, he went in and tried to replicate it and he couldn't do it, so it had to be retracted. But you never hear that kind of stuff. So it was interesting to see how science, which my degree in marriage and family is a science degree, how that science could be used to show the misinformation that's being spread out there. So would I recommend working for United Families International? Yes, I would recommend working for them. I think you learn a lot about current events and about advocacy. Plus, the people are really nice, and it's definitely a place that I grew and I learned a lot. Again, just to review, how do you access this internship? You go to the blog or to the website, excuse me. You click on Get Involved. You go to this page, you click on Internship, and it will take you where you need to go. I wish you luck.